Hello, my name's Dana. I'm 34 years old. I'm a mother to a disabled child, my daughter Holly. I had Holly when I was in a relationship with my ex-husband. The two of us had always wanted a child, so we tried immediately after we got married and I got pregnant with Holly. However, I had to give birth prematurely and Holly didn't get to fully develop physically. Her arms aren't developed and her legs are all crooked. Anyway, it takes a lot more patience to raise a disabled child. The stress of it all got to my ex-husband and he asked for a divorce just a few months after Holly was born. I was devastated after that, and I barely made it out of the divorce alive. The only person that kept me going was my sweet baby girl. I made a promise to myself that if I ever got into another relationship, I would never be with someone who would not see Holly as a child and would rather see her as just a disabled person. 4 years after my divorce, I met Jake at a coffee shop. The coffee shop was crowded and we ended up sharing a table. We got to talking and we spent a good while talking. We decided to meet up again, and before I knew it, I began developing feelings for him. So I informed him that I was a single mother to a disabled child, and if he was not okay with that, we'd have to stop meeting. He told me he was okay with that, and that he had a daughter from a previous marriage. We dated for 1.5 years before we introduced each other to our kids, and I loved his daughter, Kiara. Not only because she was so sweet, but also because she got along so well with Holly. She treated Holly like a regular kid, and it made my heart melt. Kiara was significantly older. She was around 14 when I first met her, and even though good behavior is expected from kids at that age, it was still heartwarming to see her treat Holly so well. After we introduced each other to our kids, Jake and I decided to move in. Jake had his own home while I lived in a rented apartment, so we figured that Holly and I would move in with him. A few months after we moved in together, Jake proposed to me and I happily said yes. I was practically floating on cloud 9 after we got engaged. I never thought that my life could get any more perfect. Around Christmas time of our 3rd year together, Jake asked me if I'd be open to taking a family picture for us to put on Christmas cards that he could send to his family and friends. Of course, I was on board with that, so we decided on a day to get the pictures to get taken, and when the day came, I got Holly ready. Jake began to get impatient and called everyone to gather round. Okay, everyone, gather round. We're going to take a picture to put on our Christmas cards. Do we have to do this? Dad, I have to complete my homework right now. It's only going to take 10 minutes at best. Your homework can wait that long. Dana, come on. I'm here. Sorry, I was just getting Holly ready. I'll just park Holly's wheelchair here. Is that okay, sweetie? Yes, Mama. Oh, Holly, could you move yourself a little away? A little away? She's going to be out of the frame. Yeah, that's kind of the point. Excuse me? This seems a little too much for us. Come on, Holly, let's go play some Xbox. Thank you, darling. Gosh, look what you've done. Why do you always have to be so dramatic? Dramatic? What are you even talking about? You were the one who asked my child to be out of the picture. Yeah, because I don't want people to get disgusted when they receive our card. What? Oh, please. You and I know that Holly is an eyesore. Every time I see her in one of our pictures, I feel like the entire picture is ruined. Have you felt like this the entire time? Not the entire time. I mean, I love Holly, and I mean nothing against her, but her huge wheelchair and her deformed hands make for such a bad eyesore. Wow. The last thing I expected out of you was to be ableist towards my daughter. That's not it. I just want us to have good family pictures. This is the first time in 4 years that I'm going to be able to take a bigger family picture that's not just Kiara and me. You know, when you got into a relationship with me, you agreed to be a part of Holly's life and let Holly be a part of yours. You cannot possibly ask her to not be a part of our family picture. Just because she doesn't fit your aesthetic purpose is no reason to exclude her. I told you that I meant nothing against Holly. Save it. If you truly loved Holly, you'd look past everything and you'd care more about her than some stupid need for a good picture. I'm going to grab Holly and I'm going. Don't even try to contact me. Oh, come on. It's not even that deep. We can take the picture with Holly. Don't leave. I couldn't believe what Jake said. He had never said anything remotely mean about Holly. He always treated her so well and always made sure that she was comfortable where we went. He was excellent with her, and I had always thought I hit the jackpot by finding him. Clearly, that was not the case. I never expected him to think Holly was disgusting. Jake followed me as I made my way over to Holly's room and grabbed a bunch of her things. He kept telling me that I was overreacting and that I didn't actually understand what he was saying. I didn't answer him at all and just let him ramble. I went to Kiara's room where Holly was and told her that we were leaving and wheeled her out of the house and into my car. I drove away to my mom's place. My mom looked very concerned when we showed up because I looked so pale. Once inside, I explained to Holly that we were going to be staying with my mom for a little bit, and Holly was understanding. I sat her in front of the TV and went into the dining room so I could talk to my mom. My mom was furious with Jake for the things he said and asked me if I wanted her to babysit Holly while I went and sorted things out. I told her that wasn't necessary. The thing is, my whole perspective of Jake changed the second he uttered those words. Gone was the kind and caring man. He was now just the same as my ex-husband, a disgusting, discriminating coward. I didn't see how talking to him would make anything better. I was filled with so much rage towards him that I wasn't sure if I could talk to him without being rude. Being rude towards him would not make me any different than him, and I didn't want to give him that satisfaction. I stayed with my mother for a week, and during that week, Jake kept blowing up my phone with texts and calls. I never responded to any of them. I may have calmed down a little over the week, but I was still beyond angry at him. But then, one day, Jake's mother, Sherry, called me. "Hi, sweetie, I hope I'm not disturbing you." No, I just gave Holly a bath and now she's watching TV. That's good to hear. I just called you because I needed to ask you something. Yeah? What is it? Have you broken up with Jake? I don't know. We just had a huge fight and I'm staying with my mother right now. Right, that's what Jake told me. He told me that you got mad because he asked that Holly move a little to the right and you didn't like that. I know that it's not my place to butt into your relationship, but don't you think that it's a bit much to get so mad at that? Jake's struggling at home and he's been calling everyone to see if we got in touch with you. First of all, Jake didn't just ask Holly to move to the right. He asked her to move out of the frame. Move out of the frame? Why would he ask that? Because he thinks that Holly is an eyesore that's going to make everyone feel disgusted. What? He cleverly left out the most important detail just to paint me in a bad light. You can ask Kiara and she'll tell you that he wanted Holly out of the frame. Oh my God, I'm so sorry that he said that. I never expected him to think that way. I never even raised him to think that way. I don't know where that came from either. He had never once displayed any signs of dislike towards Holly, especially over her disability. He used to always speak so highly of her whenever he met us. Or actually, now that I think about it, he was always bragging about how much care he took of her. Care? Oh no, he never took any care of Holly. We both decided from the start that we'd each only parent our kids and never the other. Oh, I had no idea. You know what? I'm going to do something about this. What do you mean? Because if you think that yelling at him or even just talking to him is going to change his mind, I don't want it. After talking to you today, I've realized just what a liar Jake is, and I don't want him to be a part of my life anymore. I'm fully on your side in this, but I don't plan on yelling or talking to Jake. I have a better idea. Just trust me, and don't break up with him as yet. But what are you going to do? Just hang in there. I'll call you in a few days and I'll let you know. I'm so sorry for assuming the wrong thing, by the way. But thank you for telling me the truth. You have nothing to apologize for. Jake was the one who manipulated his words, so it's okay. Take care until then. Bye. That phone call from Sherry was even more of an eye-opener for me. Clearly all the things that I thought Jake did for Holly because he loved her were not done out of love, but rather as a means for him to show off. The thought of that only made my anger flare up. The same girl that he was bragging about was too ugly to be in his pictures. The sheer audacity of that man to do that. And aside from that, he also conveniently left out what the fight was about. When I heard Sherry tell me that, it took everything in me to not be mean to her. She did nothing wrong to me. In fact, she was wonderful. She and I got along really well, and Holly loved her too. I knew that Sherry was only acting on information that Jake had given her. Jake knew how well Sherry and I got along, and I didn't know if this was his way of ruining our relationship. Given everything that happened, I wasn't too surprised that he'd be capable of doing that. What I didn't expect was for Sherry to be so on my side that she'd be willing to teach Jake a lesson for treating Holly so badly. I didn't understand why she felt so intensely about the issue as I did, but I chalked it up to her being a good person and someone who advocated for the disabled. While I was right about that, I didn't realize just how personal this issue was to her. A few days after my phone call with her, I got another call from her. I had been racking my brain about the ways in which she would take care of Jake, but I couldn't come up with a single thing. So when she finally called again, I couldn't have been happier than to find the answer that I was looking for. Sweetie, are you free right now? Yeah, why? Hold on, my mother wants to talk to you. Your mother? Why? Is everything all right? Yes, nothing to worry about. I was just telling her about what happened between you and Jake, and she wanted to talk to you. Oh, yeah, of course, I don't mind talking to her. Hi, darling. I'm Sherry's mother and Jake's grandmother. My name's Emma. Hi, Emma. My name's Dana, and Jake is my fiance. For now, at least. Sherry was just telling me about the mean things that Jake said. I'm so sorry that Jake said that. No, you don't have to apologize for anything. If you don't mind me asking, what kind of disability does your daughter suffer with? Well, she didn't get to fully develop in my womb. Her hands didn't develop, and her legs are crooked. She'll get into braces soon, but the doctors did tell us not to hold out much hope for that. I understand that. It must be really hard for you to see your child not getting the same treatment and opportunities as everyone else. I can't even begin to express how much that hurts. And hearing Jake say the same things that you know your daughter is going to hear in the future must have stung. Yeah, I want my daughter to grow up in an environment where she feels loved and accepted for who she is. I already know she's going to face a lot of issues in the future, so at the very least, her home should be a safe place. And if Jake himself thinks this way about her, then I'll never be able to give my daughter that. You're an amazing mother. I wish my parents were even half as kind as you. What do you mean? Polio took away my ability to walk, so I'm disabled now, which is why I wanted to talk to you. I made sure to raise my kids to be nice towards everyone, and my kids have done the same to their kids. I couldn't fathom why Jake would say something like that, I wanted to ask you if I could meet your little one. Oh my, of course you can. I'm sure she'd feel wonderful when she sees someone else who's just like her. I'm sure she'll feel that way too. Lord knows that I wanted that when I was younger. I'm hosting a birthday dinner for my 87th birthday this weekend. Why don't you two drop in? Oh, are you sure? I don't want to intrude on a family gathering. You will not be intruding at all. Just don't tell Jake anything. I'm going to humiliate him, and he's going to be crying for forgiveness. I've had a lifetime of discrimination and bullying because of my disability, and I'm not going to let someone in my family do to a child what I had to go through. Thank you so much, Emma. This really means a lot to me. Of course, sweetie. Now, I have to go take a nap, but take care of yourself. I can't wait to meet you. I can't wait to meet you either. Take care. I couldn't believe that I didn't know that Jake's grandmother was alive. You'd think it would come up in some conversation during our 3 years of being together, but it never did. It's even more alarming because Emma was disabled, and that would have been a great way to engage with Holly. Regardless, I was just glad that Jake's family was so much better than him, but the fact that they seemed to care more about Holly than Jake did, without even knowing her that well, made me incredibly sad. Why didn't Jake just talk to me about his feelings instead of stringing me along this way for so long? That's something only cruel people are capable of. When the weekend came, Holly was practically buzzing with energy. There was nothing Holly loved more than dressing up and going to a party. I didn't tell her that Emma was in a wheelchair just like her because I wanted her to be surprised when she saw Emma. I was sure she was going to be really happy to see someone who was older in a wheelchair just like her. When we got to Emma's house, one thing was clear. Emma was made of money. We pulled into the driveway of the fanciest house I've ever seen, and I had to double-check that I was at the right address. Anyway, Emma and I made our way into the house, and I was immediately greeted by the sight of a pretty big number of guests. None of them noticed me. Only one of them did. Jake. Jake's face paled, and he started trembling when he saw Holly and I there. He quickly made his way towards us. Dana, oh my God, what are you doing here? Why do you care anyway? Can you not be difficult with me right now? I haven't heard a word from you for a week, and now you just show up to my grandmother's birthday dinner? Do you have anything to say for yourself? I don't have to say anything. You are the one that needs to apologize. How did you even know about this dinner? She knew about it because I invited her. Hi, Dana, darling. How are you? I hope you didn't have much trouble finding the house. I'm doing good. And no, I didn't have any trouble with finding the house. How are you? I'm great. I barely feel like I'm a day over 60. Happy birthday, by the way. Holly, sweetie, wish Grandma Emma a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Grandma Emma. Oh, thank you so much. You're such a pretty girl, Holly. And you look just like me, but, older. Holly. Oh, it's okay. She's only speaking the truth. Okay, sweetie, we can hang out some more in 10 minutes. For now, you can go play with my great-grandkids. Don't worry about taking Holly there. I'll ask Sherry to take care of that. Wait, Grandma, how did you know about Dana? I heard the two of you got into a huge fight the other day. Dana, you told my grandma about it? Does privacy mean nothing to you? Sorry, didn't tell Mom. Dana didn't tell Mom, but she told me only because I asked her. But imagine my surprise when I found out that you purposely twisted your words to make her be a bad person. Look. No, you look at me, Jake. You know firsthand how I feel about people making fun of or treating disabled people differently. You know how I've been very adamant about all of you being empathetic towards the disabled. So to hear that you were so blatantly rude to a child, that was beyond shocking. You can't force your values onto anyone, and what goes on in my house has nothing to do with you. Don't you dare talk to your grandmother that way. No, you know what? I'm sick and tired of being the bad guy. You wouldn't be the bad guy if you just behaved decently. I did. I didn't even once imply that I hated or disliked Holly. I just didn't want her ruining the picture. That's not even hurtful. You're right, it's not. And that's why today we're all taking pictures without you, because we don't want a man with a mole on his face in the pictures. That's unfair. I can't change that. Did you think that Holly was capable of changing her disability? That's not the same thing. You're right. Having a mole doesn't mean that you're going to be treated differently. But do you know what guarantees that? Having a disability. I don't want you here. You deserve no place in this family. What? You can't kick me out. This is my house and it is my birthday. No one is going to go against me, so leave. Come on, Dana. I want to spend more time with you and Holly. Jake looked at Emma as if he had grown a second head. But Emma didn't pay him any mind. Instead, she grabbed my hand and made me follow her along to where Holly was. I heard later on that Jake made a big fuss about not leaving, but eventually his siblings kicked him out. Jake did not leave without cussing the entire family out for their weak-minded opinions. No idea what that means, nor do I care about it. Emma, Holly, and I ended up having a good time that night. Emma got along really well with Holly and kept telling her stories about all the crazy things she'd done. Holly was more amazed that Emma could do all of those things while in a wheelchair than the fact that Emma had done such crazy things. Sherry came up to me when she managed to get me alone and gave me a big, warm hug. She apologized for Jake's behavior and thanked me for giving her a chance. She told me that she raised Jake to be much better than this, so she didn't know where these thoughts came from. I mean, I imagined that growing up around someone who was disabled would make one more empathetic towards the disabled, but in Jake's case, it went the complete opposite way. Jake's siblings and I also got to talking. We had briefly met each other a year ago, but we didn't actually get to talk. They were all such lovely people who practically showered Holly with kind words. How Jake was related to all of them is beyond me. The dinner went really well, and I felt happy for the first time after Jake and my big fight. Both Holly and I went back home with the biggest smiles on our faces. But that joy did not live very long. Just 2 days after the party, Jake came over to my mother's place and began banging at the door and yelling for me to open up. I quickly put my mom and Holly into one room and told them not to come out unless absolutely necessary. I took a deep breath and opened the door. I didn't even get to say a word before Jake started yelling at me. Did you have to kick me out of my own family gathering that way? What in the world are you talking about? Don't act all coy. You know that you did that on purpose. What did I do? You purposely painted me in a bad light. Now none of my family wants to speak to me, and I've also been taken off my grandmother's will. Do you know how much I was counting on that? Why would you blame me for your disgusting ideas? It was one picture. You could have just talked to me about how you felt instead of ratting me out to my family. I did tell you that it wasn't a nice thing to say. You told me that your ideal picture was more important than my feelings. Oh, you've ruined my life. I knew that being in a relationship with a mother of a disabled child was a bad idea. Who asked you to be with me? I warned you clearly when we first started dating that my girl would be my priority, and if you did anything to hurt her, we'd be done. I didn't know how intensely your family felt about the disabled, but I'm very glad that they do, because it shows me that you're the only one with disgusting values. I'm going to make you pay for what you've done to me. What do you want me to pay for? A lesson in ethics and morality? Because I hope what's happened here has been enough. You're impossible. You need to talk to my mom and my grandmother about this. Tell them you are lying and get them to talk to me again. I don't have to do any of that. I did not lie, and they're angry at you for not only saying disgusting things, but also for lying to them. You started this, so you can finish it yourself. Goodbye. Nothing felt more satisfying than slamming the door shut in Jake's face. Jake looked stunned when I told him that he was at fault for what he did, and I don't know why either. How much self-awareness and common sense do you have to lack to not see what you're at fault in? Jake kept ringing the doorbell to get me to come and talk to him. I simply told him through the door that if he continued to remain on my mother's property, I would call the police. He left pretty quickly after that. Good riddance. Needless to say, the engagement got called off. Jake and I broke up and things went back to normal after that. The only change was that Sherry and Emma became a new constant in our lives. Emma and Holly pretty much became best friends, and Holly always asked to go over to Emma's. It was so heartwarming to see Holly feel like she wasn't different and to see her in her element like that. Sherry and I became close too. She was a lot like my mother, and it felt comforting to be around her. Jake was actually cut off from the rest of the family. Sherry told me that while it hurt her to do that, what hurt even more was to see Jake have such views even after being around a disabled person all his life. I understood her pain because I too lost someone I loved so much. The last thing I expected was a partner who was ableist. Turns out it wasn't only Sherry and Emma's side of the family that cut Jake off. Jake's daughter, Kiara, also decided that she was done with her father. As soon as she turned 16, she moved in with Sherry. Jake never tried to fight for custody because he thought that Kiara was also brainwashed with his family's ideals. I can't believe that I had ever loved him, but I was glad that I got to spend more time with Kiara and that Kiara and Holly got to be with each other again. I only had to meet Jake one more time after we broke up, and that was only to move my things out of his house. Jake did not hold back from insulting me and throwing all kinds of words at me for ruining his life. I barely paid him any mind, and that only angered him more. It got to a point where he lunged towards me, but thankfully I saw him coming towards me out of the corner of my eye and moved out of his way. I told him to keep his anger to himself, and I will call the cops myself and get him arrested for trying to hurt me. Jake huffed and left the house. I quickly grabbed my stuff and practically ran out of the house. Only after I was a safe distance away from Jake's house did I finally break down. I hadn't shed a single tear since everything that happened, but him almost laying his hands on me was the final straw. Of course, I got a restraining order against Jake because I didn't want him to get anywhere near me or Holly. Sherry and Emma were furious when they heard about what Jake had done, and only reached out to him to let him know that if he tried anything more, they were going to contact his uncle, who was his boss, and they would get him fired. Jake was silent after that. It's been a wild ride so far, but I finally got my own place and Holly is happy. I may have lost Jake, but I ended up gaining a whole new family after he left. And I couldn't be any happier about it. Thank you for listening.